So, Mega Man. You all know him, right? 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 Okay. While not as popular as he used to be, Mega Man is still nevertheless a classic Mega. Yeah, I know that's a bad franchise, spawning a total of 11 sequels, multiple sub-series, spin-offs, spin-offs to its sub-series, sequels to its spin-offs, and even a game on the WonderSwan. You remember sequel to Mega Man and based on the WonderSwan, right? Of course you don't. But for now, let's say we take a look back at what started it all, Mega Man 1. Most of you have probably heard about all of the development stuff, so I'll keep it brief. Basically, Capcom, who was at the time an arcade-only developer, wanted to try out the console market. So, a 6-member team was created, 2 of which are credited for the creation of Mega Man: Akira Kitamura, who made the sprite art for Mega Man, and Keiji Inafune, who expands upon it with animations and illustrations for the characters. With all that said and done, Rockman was born. Yeah, the Japanese name for Mega Man was, and still is, Rockman. Capcom USA eventually changed the name to Mega Man, and while that sounds more generic, it's just more fitting. Either way though, I'm fine with both names, but I'm gonna continue to refer to him as Mega Man. Anyways, after that, Mega Man was put to store shelves, and yep, it sold poorly. Now, I wasn't born yet in 1987, so I don't know how video games were advertised back then, but if I had to guess, it's the box art. Yeah, this thing looks hideous. It features an old man cosplaying as a guy from the future, while some houses just got burned, I guess. Now, the European box art is better, I guess. Mega Man just shoots a laser while Dr. Wily is in the background. Oh, and there's also Gutsman. Oh, he's also in the moon. Now, if you ask me, the Japanese one is probably my favorite one. It's not great. It doesn't really shows what the game is all about. But at least it's not this. Now, with that out of the way, let's discuss the plot. In the year 2000X, there are 2 scientists. Well, there's actually plenty, but for now, only 2 are important to the plot. Dr. Thomas Light and Dr. Albert Wiley. The 2 attended the same university and both specialized in similar studies. Dr. Light managed to create 2 assistant robots, Rock and Roll. And yes, music references are plenty in the Mega Man series, so prepare for more. And also, he managed to create 6 robot masters for different purposes. This causes Dr. Light to get all the spotlight and makes his colleagues jealous. So, Wily decided to hijack all of the robots to take over the world. Rock, with a strong sense of justice, volunteers to be converted into a battle robot to rescue all of the robot masters and stop Wily's plans. This is all taken from Mega Man 4 and the Archie comics, by the way. Like most games at the time, it kinda struggles to tell its story. I mean, it doesn't really matter because the classic series were never a story-focused series anyway, but I digress. But before we move on to the gameplay, let's talk about something else, and that is of course the US manual. I'm sure the writer of this manual clearly doesn't know what is even going on, so they decided to just make things up about Monsteropolis and all that stuff. Well, it's the 80s, I guess. Before we get into the gameplay, I want to mention the presentation first. First off, the title screen. You know you're playing an old game when the title screen is just black, a logo, and no music. The Japanese title screen is better, I guess, but still, no music. Now, in terms of music, the NES Mega Man games are notoriously praised for their soundtrack, especially Mega Man 2. Now, Mega Man 1 is not as good as future entries in this department, but it's still very nice. Next up is, of course, the graphics. I personally think that the NES Mega Man games are some of the greatest looking NES games, with the nice art direction and colorful backgrounds. I think this game looks really nice. Overall, Mega Man's graphics stood the test of time in my opinion. Now, of course, it's finally time for the gameplay. Mega Man is very simple at its structure. You can just jump and shoot. That's it. In this game at least. The Mega Man formula is based around rock, paper, scissors. So you start off with a standard pellet shot. But every boss grants you a weapon, and every boss is weak to another weapon. A lot of the replayability comes from guessing the weaknesses of the other bosses. Oh yeah, you can choose what stages you want to pick, by the way, which was very innovative at the time, considering most games usually is very linear with how you progress. You basically pick whatever Robot Master stages you want and then advance to the castle stages, where progressions becomes more linear, which is understandable. The concept for that is all good, but what about the execution? First off, let's talk about the controls. Mega Man just sort of feels slippery in this game. This can make moments of simple platforming kind of hard. Most of the time, however, this isn't really a big problem, since platforms are usually big enough. I'll discuss some of the more annoying moments when we get to the level design. Aside from that, I think the jump kinda feels off. I don't know how to describe it, but future entries just kinda feel better. Maybe it's because of the weight, I don't know. And I don't really have much to add in terms of the controls. Future entries are noticeably better, but it still gets the job done. After that, of course, is the level design. Mega Man is very known for its tough-as-nail 2D platforming. Now, this is the first game in the entire franchise, so it definitely has some flaws that can be ironed out. So, without any further ado, let's talk about the pros and cons. I'm just gonna say it. This game is very inconsistent with its quality. Some stages can offer very fun challenges. Gutman stage is a great example of that. It's a linear level with a bunch of blocks that can be moved or destroyed with certain weapons. The enemies in the stage just pops out at the right time, so that it's a fun challenge to take them out. It's not too slow where it becomes a pushover, and it's not too quick either. It all feels fun and fair and satisfying, and it really rewards confidence. This is the type of level design I like. And the same thing applies to Bomb Man stage as well. This stage have a lot of combat, platforming, and just a bunch of fun challenges. It's fun, it's hard, and most importantly, it's fair. The same thing, however, cannot be said for Elite Man stage. Spamming enemies in places and times where it's nearly impossible to react properly? Check. Reappearing disappearing blocks? Check. Boring stop and go climbing? Check. This is a stage that just doesn't work well, especially with the controls. Mega Man's slippery controls and slow climbing speed just doesn't mesh well with the near pixel perfect platforming, and the enemy spam on the ladder section? Oh man. Also, there's a power up in the stage which requires either Gutsman or Luckman's weapon to get. I'll talk about it later. As for the other stages, I think Fireman stage is decent with its combat and platforming and all that stuff, so nothing bad there. Gutsman stage gets a bad rep for the platforming section at the beginning, and yeah, it's kinda annoying. However, it isn't terrible, I guess, and I miraculously did it on my first try while recording. Even before, I never really hated this section. Sometimes the platform can spawn in a not so good location considering NES can't load off-screen stuff, but even then, just be patient, be attentive, be confident, and you're golden. How did I get that at first try? But oh boy do I hate Iceman stage. First off, ice physics can be good, but most of the time, it just isn't. And of course, there's the reappearing, disappearing block, and they are so annoying. Unpredictable patterns? Check. Trap blocks? Check. Blocks that are so small for Mega Man slippery control? You name it. These are just terrible. And the worst part is that they aren't even the worst part of the stage. Enter the moving platforms. Alright, what's wrong with this section specifically? 1. They move in a random pattern, so sometimes the death doesn't even feel like my fault. 2. They fire bullets from their side, so getting hit is inevitable. 3. There are a bunch of enemies coming from off screen, giving you very little time to react. Combine that with the knockback and the slowdown, then that is inevitable. This stage is just terrible, and I just described to you why I think it is. So, I do like some of the stages here, and some are just not good. But I think that leaves us with the bosses. Let's just say that the boss design in this game isn't the best. I'd say that Cutman, Bombman, and Gutsman are great, or at least decent enough. They all test your reflexes and have patterns that are easy enough to learn. Gutsman, however, could have been a great boss, but the ice projectiles kinda does too much damage. Now, on to the bad bosses, I guess. First off, Electman. He fires projectiles that are too quick to avoid, and it also does so much damage. Basically, it moves too fast and hits too hard, and is nearly impossible to beat without his weakness. I mean, technically it is possible, at least in a literal sense, but come on guys, I have a life. But that doesn't even come close to one of the worst Robot Masters ever made. What is that, of course? Well, of course, it's Fireman. Just look at this. The attacks are just almost impossible to dodge, and it's just annoying. And it also does too much damage, so good luck beating him without his weakness. So, what about the special weapons then? Well, it's unbalanced. Very, very unbalanced. The rolling cutter is pretty useless all things considered, as it has a short range. The ice slasher is kinda useful against these big enemies who take up insane amounts of your health. I hate these. But in terms of the weapon itself, it's not the best, but it can also be kinda useful. I'm just gonna skip the super arm, hyper bomb, and the firestorm. One is pretty situational, one is very slow, and every single one is pretty much overshadowed by the thunder beam. It fires in 3 directions, it has a long range, it's a mix of the other weapons being not so good and the thunder beam being so overpowered. Before we move on, I'd like to talk about the magnet beam. It's an item that lets you create platforms to walk on and will disappear after a while. Alright, with that out of the way, it's time to talk about the castle stages. They are a mixed bag. Stage 1 is decent until this part where they decided to include those moving platforms, and then have a section where the magnet beam is mandatory even if it seems optional. I'm sorry, but this is just bad design. Mega Man is at its best when the collectibles enhances the experience and not just make them beatable. I'm sorry. First game syndrome, I guess. I hope this will never happen again. And of course, the Yellow Devil. To be honest, this is kinda unfair, but not terrible in my opinion. He does the same pattern every time, so to me personally, it's not the hardest thing to memorize. Stage 2 is okay, I guess, except for the checkpoints. Stage 3 is very short, although it has the worst boss in the game, this bubble thingy. Now, the super arm is its weakness. However, if you use it at the beginning of the boss, well, you've lost because 1. They are tall, 2. They move quicker as you go along, meaning without the blocks, damage is inevitable, and 3. The block doesn't respawn after you die, so the only option is the game over. And now it's time for the final stage. You start off by a short platforming section, and then my least favorite Mega Man tradition appeared. Before we talk about that though, I just want to mention the Yasichi, the item which restores your health bar and weapon energy. I didn't grab it because I had a game over before this, which means all of my weapon energy is full, so... Alright, the boss rush is a thing that will continue to follow Mega Man wherever he goes. But now, you don't even get a health pickup after the boss, and you have to do it in one life. So this just ruins the already boring and anticlimactic final stage for me. After that is Dr. Wily time, which is quickly followed by ending time because my god, he's easy. So, before we end this video, I just want to mention that, well, the ending is a bit weird on how Mega Man just let Dr. Wily, free after all of that. I think it's pretty nice, it's pretty nice epilogue and it's nice music. Now, my overall thoughts. What else can I really add honestly? Mega Man is a solid first attempt. It may not be the best, but I sure won't mind revisiting it from time to time. As I said earlier, this isn't the game that started Mega Man's success. That game is Mega Man 2. What are my thoughts on it? Well, stay tuned.